Rose, her mother said, beginning to take slow steps toward her as she kneeled on the floor of the bathroom. I know this is all very new, startling and scary for you, and I'm sorry. I should have told you from the beginning. I didn't know how, without making you feel like a stranger here. It's possible that it was a mistake, but if it was at least one that I made with the best of intentions. The best of intentions? Rose said, placing her hand on the ground and looking up at her mother, tears welling in her eyes. You kept me from knowing what I even am? That I'm not even human? And you did it with the best of intentions? Is that supposed to make me feel better? Because it doesn't. I'm not even human, Rose said as she looked down at her hands. They were shaking ever so slightly. What even am I? Some mutated garden plant? No, Rose, that is not what you are. You are and have always been my daughter, my beautiful Rose. You are not some monstrosity. You are a gift, a wonderful thing. You are as your mother before you, a Sire, the people of the eternal bloom. Just as your very namesake suggests, Rose, you are a flower, a beautiful flower. And now, like all women, this is your time to bloom. If you are at home where we originally came from, this would be a wondrous time of your life, as all the women would hold a party in your honor to welcome you into the warm embrace of being a true woman. What? Rose said, looking up at her mother, not being able to believe it. I have a tumor growing on my back. And that's supposed to be a good thing. No, Rose, it's not a tumor. You're simply going through the womanly transformation that all us Sire go through. Okay, then where's your tumor? Rose replied. Once again, Rose, it's not a tumor. But since you're aware now, once again, I've been keeping mine hidden. I didn't want to blow the secret. If it was possible to let you live a human life, I didn't want you feeling as if you were lacking in any way. But as you've begun to develop, I suppose there's no harm in showing you. It's actually a great weight off my shoulders. It's very uncomfortable to keep them cooped up all the time. Keep them cooped up? What are you talking about? Rose said, looking confused and still afraid at her mother. Didn't I already tell you, Rose? You're a flower. Our most close relative here on this planet is the common garden variety tulip. We're flowers, Rose, and no flower is complete without its petals. That's what's happening to you, Rose. Just like any flower that has reached its most special part of development, you're beginning to blossom, and soon, blossom you will. Your petals will spread wide, and their beautiful, vibrant colors will fill this world with beauty. But I suppose telling you about it will only take you so far. So, let me show you. Rose's mother turned her back to Rose and took off her shirt and her upper garments, showing Rose her smooth, seemingly untouched back. Her skin was as soft and smooth as ever. Her mother was a very attractive woman, which Rose had always hoped that she would eventually become as pretty as her mother was. Mom, I don't see anything, Rose said. Just give it a moment, Rose. I haven't done this in a very long time. So, for a moment, she stared at her mother's back, and then she started to see something. At first, Rose was horrified, starting to begin to see a bulge beginning to protrude from her mother's back, raising the skin as if there was some sort of orb beneath the surface. She covered her mouth and started scooching back in revulsion, as she could see, just as on her back, small vein-like movements around the orb. And then it was as if her mother's skin began to open, as if the skin itself created a gap from nothing, and from it, some circular object began to emerge. It looked green. She could see striations and marks, and as she began to look closer, they looked like leaves, very large leaves. The bulb just kept getting bigger, larger and larger with each second. Eventually, the green leaves that wrapped around it beginning to fold away, spreading out, and underneath she saw yellow, a vibrant yellow color, and suddenly it was as if it was the most amazing thing that Rose had ever seen. The yellow within that bulb began to expand, flowing outward, unfurling. At first it was just the yellow tone itself, but as they unfurled, Rose could swear that they even glowed. A warm yellow light emanated from them as they flowed out like silk ribbons, 4 of them spreading out, beginning to fill the entire room, each rippling, moving, as if there was air flowing through the room that wasn't there. "Ah, that's so much better," her mother said as she stood to her feet. These massive yellow ribbons of glowing light. And sure enough, as Rose took stock of their full shape, even slightly curled in as they were, trying to fit within the small space of Rose's bathroom, it was a flower, a massive flower growing out of her mother's back, with beautiful yellow petals, 4 of them aglow, alight, as if they were woven from light and silk that filled the room. All of Rose's horror floated away as she was captivated by the beauty. "Mom, can I touch them?" "Yes, go ahead. It's fine. You're not going to hurt them." Rose reached out cautiously and felt one of the petals extending from her mother's back, and it was soft and warm, and as she pressed her hand against it, she felt a slight backwards push as the petal pushed right back. The sensation was smooth, just like feeling the warmth of another person's skin. It was actually at that point that Rose began to notice it, that there was a beautiful smell that began to fill the room. The fragrant smell of flowers, as if she was standing in a field of them. As she looked towards the center of the flower blooming out of her mother's back, she could see tiny glowing specks floating from the center of that bloom. As Rose stood up, getting closer to look, the smell only grew more intense, and it was clear that it was this centerpiece that was producing the smell. A beautiful flowery fragrance had floated out, filling the room with tiny specks of golden light. Very curious, Rose actually reached her hand out, trying to touch this central location. As she did, it quivered a bit, releasing even more of that golden dust floating into the air. And her mother chuckled a bit, giggling to herself. "Be careful, Rose, that tickles." At this point, all of Rose's fear had gone away for the time being, replaced with utter amazement. And suddenly, she couldn't wait to have her own.